Welcome, all of you, to the Inside Line F1 podcast. We are back after a break. Formula One is back after a break. And we are coming to the United States for the second time this year. And I don't think anyone is complaining at all about the fact that we're going to go racing at the Circuit of the Americas this weekend. What a big playing field we have this time. And along with this, when we come to America every single time, we always have to bring up the American F1 updates. Number one, Andretti. There is no update, so stay put on that. But there is an update on Haas, Sundaram. They suddenly have some new spice to their life.
They, of course, do have a new spice in the form of not one, but two sponsors. One, of course, is Toyota, the big Japanese automobile brand, but they also have another insurance brand that's just come in. I think it's called Orion 180 or something of that sort. So they have two sponsors that they've signed up for multi-year deals. And it's a big thing for a small team like Haas because, of course, it does bring in a lot of money to kind of use in the budget cap. They'll be reaching the ceiling of the budget cap in that regard, but they'll also have a lot more money to use in terms of marketing. But it definitely helps them in the technical aspects of this. They'll be using Toyota's, probably they'll be using their wind tunnel and all their capabilities, engineering capabilities that they bring from their side. And it's going to be a fun little what do you say, partnership that I think it's going to definitely benefit them in the coming years. Surely they might not be winning championships or races already, but it definitely works for a small team like them.
And they have a special livery, Kunal. I know you're not a fan of these, but here we go. This looks pretty, right? And when I say this looks pretty, there's a reason behind that. For all your listeners, we're actually now trialing out a format where we have a presentation on video, so you can actually see stuff if you're on our YouTube channel as well, which is a slight nudge for you to see us more than you hear us as well. Not that we don't like you listening to us, but again, visual is always a little bit better. And that car looks decent, right? I like the way it goes around. But what are your sentiments on Haas and the way things are going?
I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, let's look at what Sundaram has just explained. Toyota has come back to Formula One. Okay, although Toyota, the chief of Toyota said, please do not say that we are returning to Formula One. He's
Yeah.
requested that, so we will not say that they're returning to Formula One. But the reason why this is so interesting is Haas, who's literally been nowhere till this year, for after they finished fifth in 2018 till literally end of 2023, suddenly have Toyota interested in them. They already have a partnership with Ferrari, two massive automobile companies backing a privateer Formula One team. And Toyota has actually said that they want to learn Formula One
Yeah.
practices. They want to use Haas and the Formula One ways of working and competitiveness and data collection and fine tuning and designing and manufacturing and innovation. They want to use that to train their supply chain, to train their production for the road cars, which I think is a beautiful story because we've always grown up to race on Sunday, sell cars on Monday. So this sort of, falls within that. And they've also said we want to give young Japanese drivers a chance to, get a chance to try out Formula One machinery, which means Ritomo Miyata, the Formula Two driver, is suddenly closer to a Formula One test drive more than any of the other drivers who've been finishing ahead of him pretty much in the Formula 2 season. So I think it's a great success story for Haas, even more so for Formula 1. And, beyond the point, yes, we want manufacturer teams. We want Toyota to actually field a Formula 1 team. But the truth is, the cost of that is extremely high, right?
Yeah.
So when Stefano Domenicali is out selling Formula 1, he'll say, yes, Renault might be leaving, but guess what? Have you heard? Honda's come back and Toyota's come back. And, just naming or name dropping these brands itself is very great for the sport. So welcome back, Toyota, even though you said you don't want to be welcome back. This is not your return. I think it's a great feel-good story.
And come to think about it, right? Haas F1 team, a team with barely over 300 employees, is becoming a source of learning for a giant corporation like Toyota that has over 380,000 employees. Think about it. This is how Formula One is such a big proving ground for technology. But real talk, do you think Toyota is actually going to benefit Haas in any way in the coming future? Are Haas going to be midfield leaders in 2 or 3 years? Probably not, because the way this partnership works out, it's a lot more to do with people and processes. That's what Toyota have emphasized on. By people, They mean engineers, they mean drivers. Currently, Japanese engineers and race drivers barely have a pathway to get into Formula One. And because there's no Japanese manufacturer up there, there's no real streamlined way for them to get into the global space of competing in the top of motorsport, which is what this partnership aims to solve. So, junior drivers, engineers, mechanics, all of them are going to be up there. Toyota are going to build a simulator for Haas in Banbury. Wind tunnel hasn't been confirmed yet, but one important component technically is going to be manufacturing. Toyota plan to shift their manufacturing from Dallara, completely to Dallara, to partly done by Toyota because they are quite good at making carbon fiber composites and other stuff like that. So, in terms of design, in terms of engineering, in terms of the the absolute design philosophy of a car, Toyota's not going to have a major influence very soon. Hold your horses. This is still very much a Haas team that's run with three different pillars: Ferrari from the engine side, Dallara from the contract manufacturing side, and then Toyota separately for these few things that we've mentioned over here. So Toyota coming in isn't going to change the world for Haas, but it certainly helps, Kunal, doesn't it? Because they now have another major technical partner in a way that doesn't replace Dallara and Ferrari. And yes, it's kind of disjointed that one arm of the team is in Maranello, one arm of the team is in the Dallara factory, one arm of the team is in Cologne now, and back at the Toyota base as well. And still they have one unit at Banbury. It's a little bit of a mishmash that could be more problematic than anything, I feel.
I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Because the tools that we have in the world today allow for cloud collaboration. In fact, that's something I actively, do for a day job, if that's how I may put it, is that. And I believe, for example, Red Bull Racing Technologies is based in Milton Keynes, Alpha Tauri is in Faenza. They're also trying to optimize as much as they can by being in two different locations physically as well. In my mind, I don't think Toyota is going to be the one that will drive Haas closer to the top of the midfield. I think it is going to be Ayao Komatsu and Ferrari itself. Toyota just happens to be one of those commercial deals that Haas will benefit from, that will give them more money to spend to the cost cap. And I think that's critical, because just because you have a cost cap doesn't mean everyone has the money to spend to the cost cap, right? And this is something Gunther Steiner used to say time and time again for Gene Haas, so that he's not investing more money. But Ayao Komatsu has literally showcased that you can just use the same tools differently, more efficiently, and still score points. And I still think Haas is the most cheered midfield team this season, given Nico Hulkenberg's antics, given how he's finished, I think, 11th in 7 or 8 out of the 19 races, and so on. So I think Haas is actually on a great trajectory. And, not every team exists to win in Formula One, even though, of course, everyone wants to. Much like not all of us want to become billionaires, but not all of us end up being so, right? So there's a good balance of everything needed in life, much like there's a good balance of privateer teams with modest but honest intentions and ambitions also needed in Formula One, I would say. So great going for Toyota. Love the fact that Japan is backing its engineers and drivers to such a level. I wish that Indian car manufacturers actually did the same thing for Indian engineers, for Indian drivers as well. We know Kush Maini is, knocking on the doors of Formula One with Alpine. But I know so many Indian engineers already working within the paddock, but there are a few thousand more who could probably find their way into motorsport if somebody puts their head to it the way Toyota and Honda have done so for Japanese talent, both on track and in the paddock and in the pit lane all these years.
And you don't need a team for that. You can tie up with a smaller team to make that happen, which is phenomenal. And Haas were the most likely ones, because I remember Toyota wanted to do something with McLaren as well a year or two ago, but that didn't really materialize. But interestingly, Sundaram, my mind goes to Driver Academy, because Toyota clearly have mentioned that they want their younger drivers to go through the Formula One pipeline. And they have actively worked on, they will actively work on getting a driver simulator involved and installed at the Haas factory in Banbury so that more young drivers can work on that. But from what I read, and it's mind boggling, Haas will be able to run a young driver program with former engineers and old F1 cars for the first time. And I was shocked, because come to think about it, they haven't ever really done that.
That's exactly what I thought as well, because whenever these post-season tests happen, or even these in-season tests happen. I mean, for example, McLaren has a, what do they call it, previous car test or some
Testing TPC,
historical
yeah,
histor
yeah.
yeah, historical cars test. Haas has never done that, and now this gives them the opportunity to do that. But of course, it will be Japanese drivers who will be in the cockpit and doing that. So in that sense, it gives more exposure to those drivers as well to be able to be present, and also for Haas and their junior engineers to be present for those and get a lot of experience. Which is why we say it's great going for Haas that they're getting all the right steps. And probably at the start of the year, we kind of doubted Ayao Komatsu's ambitions, because he was also part of the whole Gunther Steiner system, and we wondered if he could actually go and change this team. And he's actually done that. Haas has been in the points. They've gotten a couple of very big sponsors, and in that sense, the trajectory for Haas looks very, very promising.
There's been a wandering thought in my mind, Kunal. Was Ayao Komatsu probably brought into the team principal position instead of a big external hire like Otmar because they wanted to entice someone like Toyota to come in? Because from what I see, I mean, the reason why Toyota hasn't been able to succeed in Formula One is adapting to the more European and American style of running a racing team. They were all in different processes when they came in, and Komatsu offers that bridge in a way. He's Japanese, but in terms of motorsport culture, he's European. So he's a brilliant link between Haas and Toyota, if you have to think about it that way.
I mean, I'm pretty sure being Japanese made it easier to negotiate and talk the same language, but it's not because Komatsu is the team principal that Haas was the target or something. It was, in all probability, there's a good chance Toyota fished around the market with the privateer teams, much like pretty much every sponsor does.
I mean,
so, right?
the reverse, that Haas got Komatsu in instead of someone bigger because they wanted Toyota to come in, like making it easier for them. Is that, could you?
No, no,
No?
no. So, Soumil, we've got to remember, Haas had no guarantees Toyota was going to sign till they actually signed, right? And the change happened like 10, 11 months ago. Okay. So the changes happened primarily because of the fact that, Gunther Steiner said we need to put in more money, invest more money if we want to go forward. Gene Haas probably said no, and that's why they've been fighting in court cases and various other off the track issues. And Komatsu said, I can actually use these tools better. Just let me do that, but let me have a crack at it. Maybe he asked for a chance, and look at what he's made of the chance. So
Yeah.
I don't think getting Komatsu was anything but meritocracy, talent, and ability. All the commercial benefits that have come are all a byproduct of it, but not the key reason why they had Ayao Komatsu, I would say. I mean, look at it this way. If Komatsu was so critical, I think Haas failed to not get Komatsu, the sponsor,
Yeah.
to their team. Komatsu is one of the main sponsors of Williams. Williams' side pod has Komatsu written there. James Vowles actually a couple of days ago tweeted a picture saying off to a Komatsu event, and for a second I'm like, what event is Ayao Komatsu hosting? I actually fell for that, even though I know he didn't sort of want me to fall for that. But yeah, so Komatsu could have been used to get Komatsu as a sponsor on Haas if that was the case.
2026. We're waiting for that. Let's see. That'll be the entire completion of the loop in a way. Well, let's tell you more about who we are then, folks. This is the Inside Line F1 podcast. And finally, we can show you our faces and our beautiful presentations visually as well. Give me a second to pull this up because we're still kind of getting used to this. There we are, the four of us. That's Kunal, that's Mithila, that's myself, and F1 Stats Guru. First up is my slide. So who's going to pick it up, guys, for the intro?
I'll do that. So
Go for it.
Soumil is I would say India's youngest commentator. He's all of 20, but he has a lot of experience that's visible right in front of you. He's worked along with Formula E as an expert on Sony ESPN, and he's also been the trackside commentator for India's MotoGP race last year, and he's also the official commentator of the Indian Racing League and the Indian F4 Championship this season as well. So a lot of experience packed in a little 20-year-old body. So someone who comes with a lot of enthusiasm as well. So yes, that's Soumil for you.
I'm little by Dutch standards. I like that. But Kunal, why don't you introduce Sundaram, shall we?
Of course. I was just wondering if you end up introducing Sundaram, then I just end up introducing myself. So it
Exactly. The,
has
the
to
whole
be.
mental math happened.
But I don't think Sundaram actually needs an introduction. If we just say that his internet name is F1 Stats Guru, one of the most engaged handles on the internet, some of the best facts and stats that come out every race weekend, that is now being consumed by official channels that bring Formula One to you. So yes, you get Sundaram directly on his page and on the Inside Line F1 podcast, but you're already consuming his content indirectly via Sky Sports or BBC or the race and the likes. And he's a member of the WTF1 talent group as well. And personally, I absolutely love his stats. We discussed some of them before the show. We, in fact, discussed them even before my Viaplay broadcast as well. And I love how Sundaram has created this niche for himself in the world of Formula One.
That reminds me, Kunal, are you going to be on TV this weekend? Because Sundaram and I are going to be. So are we going to make it like a trio this weekend too? Or
Absolutely. I'll be there Sunday pre-race broadcast during the race and post-race on Viaplay. So everyone will be able to catch me talk Formula One in the real broadcast. And we still have the old slide for me. I see that. Yes.
we
Okay.
need to change that, because if we go to the whole logo based thing for you, Kunal, it's going to be quite hard because what are we going to include? The Force India Formula One team where you were a marketing head previously, the Viaplay F1 broadcasts where you are a TV expert and continue to work as an F1 consultant behind the scenes. Uh, there are so many other companies. Star Sports, India's primary sports broadcaster. Rest in peace. And what else? There's so many other companies that we can add to the list. But yeah, and First Post for their articles as well. You were the one who started the Inside Line F1 podcast. And the Force India 1 in a Billion program that eventually resulted in the finding of Jehan Daruwala and Arjun Maini. Again, Kunal was the man behind it. So there's lots of images we need to add in. It's like Haas's technical structure. It's work in progress. So the Dallara and Ferrari end is complete. We've just onboarded Toyota right now. So we're figuring that process out. Don't worry. But that's us. And a brief insight on the people we've worked with. Lots of really fun companies. The likes of Red Bull, Puma, Johnny Walker, FanCode, India's official F1 broadcaster, 8 Sleep, NordVPN, Music, Amazon Music, Social, now Heineken as well after this weekend where we had the Singapore GP screening in Mumbai. There's lots of fun stuff happening around. But that's us. What are we going to talk about next, guys, about the USGP? There's so much happening. Do you guys want to talk about the trophies first? I know. Oh wait, Sundaram, you have your hand up.
Now, before that, we do have to mention about the triple header that we have. So, of course, it's going to be a triple header in Formula One with USA, Mexico, and what is it? Sao Paulo, the Brazilian Grand Prix. But we also have a triple header of sorts, Soumil, you and I. So we have Formula One, we have the Indian F4 Championship, and the Indian Racing League all happening this weekend. We have to cover 3 different championships within those couple of days. We are going to be
right.
absolutely engaged throughout the whole day.
Isn't like the USGP at the time when our flight's taking off or something?
Exactly.
I think it is. Yeah, it's absurd. But this weekend, I mean, it promises to be such an incredible one. In my mind, this is going to be one of the best weekends that we have throughout the racing season. Probably not for on-track action, but in terms of storytelling. Because here, Kunal, we come back after a 1-month-long break. A break where almost every single team has singled out their intentions to bring in new parts. Because you rarely ever get this much time in the middle of a season. And that means McLaren could be coming up with upgrades. Red Bull certainly are coming up with upgrades. So are Ferrari. Mercedes also plan to bring in some new stuff. The entire competitive grid could shake up based on this. And we recollect the Silverstone upgrades so fondly for Mercedes in 2021. This could be something similar where the entire pecking order could change as teams finally get a proper circuit to race on this time.
Yes, a proper circuit, because we had Monza and Baku that were like low downforce, high speed circuits, and then Singapore was low to medium speed but a very high downforce circuit. Now, for once, we have a proper racing circuit. But why don't we actually spend a minute each sharing what we did during this break while we were missing Formula One? Because I know we were up to lots of things on the Inside Line F1 podcast, but in personal life, Soumil, what did you end up doing in these 3.5 weeks that we've not had Formula One?
I was studying for my exams, which were meant to begin today. but the buggers delayed it by a month. So it's all gone to shit basically.
is 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 the examiner's does his name or her name be something like MBS? Is the exam like the 25th race on the calendar which cannot be supported suddenly because you're, I don't know if you're giving out of sequence exams or whatever, but
Yeah,
I
I am.
actually
Yeah.
laughed when I read that about MBS. So that's
But
your
what's the whole story about MBS in the 25th race? Wait, I need to know now.
he's saying we cannot consistently support 24 races. Why are you asking us to do a 25th race? That's literally there. Of course, he didn't use the word consistently, but I just added that for my own garnishing and masala. But no, it's a money game. FI wants money to have more races and rookie races adjudicated, which is fair. It costs them money as well. But before we go down that road further, Sundaram, what were you up to in this 3.5 week break?
I took a nice break in its truest sense. I took a good break because content creation and all of this can be a very exhausting job as well. So I actually focused on myself a little, did a little of office work because we all have day jobs as well. So spend a little time with my office colleagues, reminding them that hey, I still work here, and then kind of prepped myself for the United States Grand Prix because I have a ton of stats to actually share with you folks, so which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, prepared myself for the next two triple headers because it's going to be that exhausting as well.
One sec, you had a fun break. I see two new posters on your wall. Two new
Yeah, I
Fernando
did
Alonso
that.
posters on your wall.
So these posters were up here, and I said no one can get to see it, so let's bring it over here. And I did all of this.
Nicely done. What were you up to, Kunal?
Well, I don't think it was a break at all because I've got a 4-year-old daughter who's very fond of the both of you, which she was asking, why
Oh.
don't y'all speak more often, And I said, yeah. So we're mostly going to move houses in the next few months, so putting lots of pieces together. And in general, I don't think I can ever take a mental break from Formula One, just catching up with old friends, people who've been cheering me on for several years, and just realizing that what I do, I'm so grateful to be living the Formula One life and sharing it with you guys and all our listeners. And yeah, 6 races. I wondered why Formula One couldn't really put a race in there, but like we said in the last episode, we have so many dates to match and not match and miss, and I'm just glad we have 24 races. It just makes it even more fun. And I was actually wondering, I was speaking to a few people in the paddock, and everyone's enjoying the break. The big storyline in these 6 races is, will Red Bull have found something to get them to bounce back? They have been saying all along, Austin is when we are bringing upgrades. You pointed out very well, Soumil, everyone's bringing upgrades. So the story of the next 6 races could be, can Red Bull actually bounce back? Because if they do not do so in 2024, they've had a nice break to try and catch up and revisit some of their situations and solutions and whatever. Then 2025, actually, we'll go into that season believing McLaren or somebody else, or maybe even Ferrari, like Charles Leclerc is saying, could be title contenders. So that's what I've been trying to deduce and assess, saying, can Red Bull actually be bouncing back? And literally, it is from this weekend that we'll have to see.
And to add to that, it's not just any Red Bull that could be bouncing back. It has to be a new Red Bull that bounces back. Remember, this is the first major upgrade without Adrian Newey. This engineering department has to function on its own legs now without the Grand Headmaster. So can they figure that out? That's going to be such a fun story, Sundaram.
Oh, indeed, exactly. And Adrian Newey's already made his appearance with Aston Martin with Christian Horner's isn't really a fan of. But it's going to be interesting how Red Bull progresses this weekend. And in my mind, I think what Red Bull might not be targeting for the Constructors' Championship, or they probably feel the grip of that already loosening. What Red Bull needs to do at this point is try and stay ahead of Mercedes and Ferrari, because if they do that, and it allows Max Verstappen to have just enough points to hold on to the championship, that will allow that he still stays with the team going forward. Otherwise, he's going to absolutely lose hope and probably switch to Mercedes. And if that happens, it just feels like a domino falling and everything else kind of coming crashing down. So I think Helmut Marko also explained that McLaren are probably going to be winning the constructors title. So I think they have their sights firmly set on ensuring Verstappen does just about enough that he takes the drivers' championship. And I think Red Bull will probably be in that space that we just have to be better than the Mercedes and Ferrari. Maybe we can't really challenge McLaren.
Hmm.
And just to add to what you said, Samuel, first major upgrade without Adrian Newey. The reason why that's so critical is this is Adrian Newey's platform.
Yeah.
This is the car he's designed. Now, other set of people are going to try and find solutions to a car they have not designed, literally, right? Is Adrian the one person who could have made the difference? No, absolutely not. I think teams are way too big for that, and that's not just PR talk. But Adrian is like that, Michelin star chef in a restaurant. Just because the chef is gone doesn't mean the food is bad. But there
Yeah.
was something that Michelin star restaurant brought to the recipe, or the way he or she mixed, food, or whatever you call it, and that special ingredient is what's gone missing. So let's see how they bounce back. Of course, in the case of McLaren, they need to win everything that there is. Lando Norris is the only driver to have converted two races from pole to finish, Sanford and Singapore, in the last 10 races. So let's see how that goes. I think if he's on the front row, I'd love to see what P2 ends up doing, because if I saw correctly, I think the last 6 races, 5 times, P2 has led on the opening lap. Given how beautiful the turn one is, some 12 story of a
Oh,
climb,
let me
135
pull it up
feet.
for you. One sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's show the people what it's like. Let me toggle through a few images here. Yeah, that's the technical issue of working with a platform like this, but we shall get over it because there's a site like this to behold. What a climb.
That's an extremely steep climb, and that's nearly 100 feet high. And like you mentioned, it's 12 stories high and equivalent to having 30 F1 cars stacked on top of each other. That's how steep it is. And do you know what they
And
call
what I
it?
what I
Samuel, you
love
know what they
about
call
this
it?
is, yeah,
The big red? Oh
They
no,
call
the
it
Phil Hill. The
the
Phil Hill,
Phil
because
Hill.
that's what Bob Barsha told us when he was on the show. Yeah, exactly.
yes. And
But you were
what's
saying, Kunal.
beautiful for me is, yeah, it's an uphill tight left hander, but we have seen 2 or 3 cars go in abreast, struggle mid corner. Somebody's going off track, somebody's going offline,
Yeah.
somebody actually takes the line as it comes. So it gives a good mix of the opening lap, and we're going to have 2 opening laps, 2 starts, given that it's a sprint race weekend, which, by the way, was a big surprise to all of us when we had to revisit the tires for the sprint race weekend as well. Yeah, but it's a great a great start grid. I'm sure it looks beautiful when you're sitting in the car. So guys and girls, when you'll get to see onboard footage from the start, it just looks straight up, and you'll see, wow, the road just keeps climbing, and then suddenly turns left.
Hey, you know that new T camera that they're trying out, the one that shows the speed better, the one that feels like a video game. There's like
The
there's
gyro
a
cam
no,
or the
the
helmet cam?
gyro cam. That will be insane this weekend, like through the lefts, rights, and lefts, because that's in my opinion, that's the best camera angle Formula One has on any car anywhere. Shows you the speed better than anything can, even the visor cam, and that around the S's will be a sight. Like just to see cars going around there.
That's a very interesting point that you make over there. And as people watch the footage of the gyro cam, you might get a sense of deja vu as you make a lap around the track, because Herman Tilke for once has combined a lot of corners from different circuits and made the COTA circuit. And
Hmm.
first of all, if you look at the opening corner as well, the uphill climb, that's very similar to the opening climb at the Red Bull Ring or the Ostrich Ring before that. And then you head towards Maggots Beckett's Maggots Beckett's
Chapel.
Chapel. And then you have the Suzuka SS. Beyond that, you have the Hockenheim Stadium bend. And then you have the four
The
apex corner
reverse
that
of
you see,
Turkey.
the reverse
Yeah.
of Turkey. So you have a bunch of little corners from taken inspiration from other important and very popular tracks around the world.
But they couldn't put a lift to that tower. That's what sucks. I don't, maybe that's the charm of it, but that gigantic tower that they have at the Circuit of the Americas, you've got to climb it all the way up. And folks, if you have climbed that tower, because I know a lot of our listeners have gone to the USGP, tell us how tough of a climb is that? How many stories is that? Surely must be higher than 12 stories or something like that. It's insane, but the kind of views that you get there, I mean, they surely must make up for it. But importantly, the views are going to be interesting this time because we have no clue who's going to be where. Of course, McLaren after Singapore have a strong upper hand, and they are generally decent at these medium to high speed corner sort of places. But Red Bull are coming up with a big upgrade. Mercedes were good last year, so were Ferrari, and this could be a place where there could be so many surprises. So that, and plus the sprint as well, that could change up the order. That is going to be interesting. Which is where
And
my
yeah.
go for it.
No,
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 which
go
is where
for it.
my
Go
eyes
ahead.
are on Oscar Piastri particularly. Can he just nudge Lando Norris and get his way past? Because that battle has been brewing up, and I'm very keen to see if he can execute the perfect weekend quite like Lando can, because that's what he missed out on badly in Singapore. And for Lando, it's a championship battle that he has to fight for.
And Soumil, you mentioned upgrades. Now, the dichotomy of a sprint weekend is you have just one practice. So, should you still
Yeah.
bring upgrades, right?
It's a good
But
point,
the truth, yeah. The truth is, despite limited practice, the long break and the triple header to come are the reasons why teams will still put in their upgrades. Simulation tools are better. They'll learn more about their upgrades. They can always go back and revert to another configuration. Use the sprint as a test bed if they have to, because the more data you get, the better it is for the races to follow, especially in a triple header. So that's going to sort of be good to see who's getting, how bold will each team be when it comes to their upgrades. And you mentioned Oscar Piastri. Well, yes, he's been racing extremely well. I know everyone's been talking about his tire management being the one key area where he had to improve. He has improved. But here's a telling stat: Piastri has outqualified Lando Norris in just one out of the last 10 races, and that was in Baku. Okay.
Yeah.
So another step that Oscar Piastri does need to make is single lap pace. And the question we actually asked, and I won't tell you who we were discussing this with, but I'll tell you guys offline. Uh, is Lando Norris actually better in single lap pace? Or is Piastri still catching up to go there? And we all talk of nerves when it comes to Lando Norris. That Lando Norris is just messing it up when he's under extreme pressure. But is that really the case? And if that was the case, how is he actually nailing single lap qualifying then? Because
Yeah.
you're under even more pressure during a single lap qualifying session, right? So just trying to assess how much there could be with Oscar Piastri should he actually make that step up into single lap pace as well.
Valid. Absolutely valid. And for this weekend, Piastri and Norris have to be on the spotlight because they can maximize whatever they can get. Obviously, the pressure is going to be on Verstappen. But there is something interesting about Lewis Hamilton, Sundaram, that we also need to discuss. He, let me bring
Before
up.
you go to Hamilton,
Okay.
since you guys love liveries so much, McLaren
Oh,
has
I don't.
absolutely just really. Don't we
Oh,
talk
have they-
about liveries and you?
I absolutely hate the liveries that I've seen this year or even the last couple of years. And before getting into this episode, I did see what Alpine have come out with. So I don't even want to discuss that.
let me show you that 1 second. It's a weird little.
While you show us all that, McLaren has just released a chrome livery with papaya and black.
Ah.
I think it looks pretty cool. Yeah, I like the silver, that's there on it.
That's not the McLaren one. That's the Renault one. Alpine. That's Indiana Jones inspired. We can't find the McLaren one because you're right, Kunal. They've just released it 5 minutes ago, and there's no official image that we can show you at the moment. But it looks pretty though. It's quite nice.
Yeah. But
Similar to what they
Alpine,
had
my
last year,
goodness,
didn't they?
what is Indiana Jones about this livery apart from the studio lighting?
So, they said it's a collaboration between Alpine and Xbox, which is weird because the similarities are kind of funny. Two giants of the past falling away into obscurity and irrelevance, trying to bring themselves back up together. I don't get it. It's sure superhero stuff. They have superhero owners, so Might as well, I suppose. I don't know. What's Indiana Jones about this car? Because we have nothing to say about Alpine, we should tell you a little bit more about Lewis Hamilton, shall we, Kunal? Or what? Or what do we go to, Sundaram? What's on your mind? Lawson or Hamilton? What do we get to first?
Let's do Hamilton.
Let's
Let's
do
do
Hamilton.
Hamilton
The driver
because
with the
Hamilton.
most wins in Austin and two championship winning wins, right? It was 2019 and 2015, I think.
It was 2015 here, yeah. 2015 was here in the wet when he threw a cap onto Nico Rosberg. No, Rosberg threw a cap onto him and got one back. Was it that? Yeah, I think
That
it
was
was.
2015. That was
That's
2015.
2015.
But yes,
But it's
indeed, Hamilton has a very good record around COTA in itself because he won the first ever race that happened here in 2012. But he's actually won at COTA 5 times and in the USA a total of 6 times, which is the joint most by any driver, along with Max Verstappen. So if Verstappen manages to win the race this weekend, he will become the most successful driver in the country, and vice versa as well. USA is going to be the most successful country for him. But Lewis Hamilton has always started from the top five starting positions around COTA, and he's always managed to finish in the top four as well. I mean, if you consider even last year, he finished the race in P2, but then he was disqualified for excessive plank wear. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is Lewis Hamilton is very, very strong around this particular track. So you can definitely expect some magic coming from that Mercedes car this weekend because he usually tends to do this around tracks that he's very strong, be it Silverstone or be it COTA for that matter. He does well around these tracks.
And what's going to be fun this time is going to be managing strategy as well. Because normally this race tends to be like a one stopper, but crucially, this time things are different. Here's the tire graphic to tell you more about it. We have the normal C2, C3s, and C4s. C3s, of course, a tire that McLaren tend to love quite a fair bit. But importantly, this time out, resurfacing. That's going to be a big factor. There is a completely new surface at the Circuit of the Americas. And yes, the circuit information on the left that Pirelli mentions is a decent reference normally, but you cannot tell with a new surface. You never can. You have to go there and figure out if your calibrations that you've made on your simulator actually work out well in real life. And that's going to be a big, big shift, especially for a driver who hasn't really raced here, someone like Liam Lawson. And that is going to be a big moment in this season now, because come to think about it, last year, the USGP was the point where Daniel Ricciardo replaced Liam Lawson in AlphaTauri. This year, it's the opposite. Liam Lawson is the one who's replacing Ricciardo, finally making his, dare I say, full-time Formula One debut. Expectations, guys. What do we make of this? Okay, who's gonna go first? Nobody wants to talk about Lawson or what?
No, I kind of like the sort of situation that he's being put into. I mean, of course, he also has an engine penalty. Christian Horner mentioned that a couple of hours before. So he's going to start off with an engine penalty. He's going to get a grid drop. But it looks good for Liam Lawson in that regard because last year when he substituted for Ricardo, he was able to adjust, acclimatize quickly to the car and the processes and managed to get a couple of good results as well. And this puts him in a very good platform right now because if he's able to show that he has genuine pace over the next 6 races, he could not just be a contender for that RB seat next year, but probably also Red Bull. If Sergio Perez doesn't have a very good rest of the season, he could actually be a contender for that seat as well. So Liam Lawson has huge shoes to fill, not just in terms of Daniel Ricciardo, but it's going to be a very exciting challenge to see what he can do over these next races, six Grand Prix and 3 sprints.
And I suppose that would have been spoken. I mean, I suppose that would have been communicated to him, wouldn't it, Kunal? That there is an opportunity for that Red Bull seat because if anything, that doubles up the pressure.
In fact, in the Red Bull system, you don't even need an official communication. You just know that the minute you're in the car, you got to perform. And as a fan, it's fair to ask a question: is it fair to give a driver a grid penalty, engine penalty just on his return race? The truth is, yes, there's a penalty. They're calling it a soft landing, but there is nothing like a soft landing in Formula One. Everyone's eyes are on
Yeah.
you. You'll still be tracked. Your telemetry will be compared. Nobody will say, yeah, you got an engine penalty, so why don't we stop tracking your sector times and your braking and your acceleration? No, he's very much in that limelight. and with the chance of his life to see if he can get that short run of 6 races to show Red Bull that, hey, you can actually bet on me for not just replacing Daniel Ricciardo, but even Sergio Perez. And I still get a feeling that if Mick Schumacher or whoever is in conversation with Audi doesn't get signed up soon enough, Checo Perez might just have to take that seat.
Good for him. I think that'll be a good place to go, genuinely. A place where your experience and your talents are valued to another level. If anything, it might be a better working environment for him than Red Bull Racing, where he's constantly under scrutiny. And that was someone who's clearly past the younger stages of their career is quite a challenge, I suppose, right? Where you're being questioned every single day. Wouldn't you want a more relaxed environment where you can bank on your experience and get people to value that? I suppose long run that might be a very good place for him to go. But we'll see. And as for Liam Lawson, I mean, it's going to be such a big test. I'm so excited to see if he can acclimatize back to that car, as well as if Franco Colapinto has gotten used to a Williams, because that's going to be the question around. How quickly can you get used to the Formula One car again? And that is going to be, and actually, that's a big reason why, Kunal, they got him back into this team, because they saw him acclimatizing to the car so well last year. So the bar has been raised high by him, for him.
And he's been doing a lot of testing in this break. So while we've been on a break, chilling on a couch with our feet up, he's been in those cars doing a lot of Pirelli tests and a lot of TPCs. If I remember, at least 1 or 2 days of TPC. That's testing previous cars, which is what everyone's doing, which is what Kimi Antonelli has been doing as well. So Liam Lawson's been trying to get as many miles under his belt, or kilometers under his belt, depending what part of the world you're listening from.
Well, it's going to be miles for this weekend, for sure.
Yeah.
What the hell is a kilometer anyway?
But the beauty in this reason why Red Bull has decided to give Lawson a chance and could give him a chance even at Red Bull Racing. Can you believe the reason why they've done that? Red Bull got inspired by Williams giving Colapinto a chance, and Colapinto actually doing so well in the 2 or 3 races that he's had, right? 3 races, correct? And then Red Bull, of course, asked themselves the question: could we also do that with our F2 driver? Are they also well trained and well talented enough to jump into cars? And my theory is, and I'm going to actually have to repeat this on the Sunday broadcast as well. I have 2 theories to this. Firstly, Sundaram's going to like a reference being made to Fernando Alonso, where Alonso recently said the reason why we've gone 9 races without a safety car, or could be 9 races. We've gone 8 races without a safety car.
9 races.
Yeah,
9 races.
9 races. Yeah. Is because we're no longer driving the car 100%. These cars go faster when we drive them at 90%.
Yeah.
Right? Which then makes me wonder, I remember for a rookie to jump into a Formula One car was one of the most intimidating things back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Nobody almost expected a rookie to shine in the first several races. They always wanted to give them time and so on. But is it because cars are driven at 90% that it's easier for rookies to jump in and drive well? It's not that the rookies cannot handle fast speeds. No.
Yeah.
It's just that when it comes to driving these beasts of cars and these big, huge, heavy cars on the limit, okay, that's when experience helps. That's when lots of track time helps, etc. I mean, Colapinto jumped in without any track time, much like Oliver Behrman did. And so, like I said, 2 theories. Yes, it's probably easier because they are all driving at 90%, but great that youth is getting a chance, especially when, there are drivers like Fernando who want to wait till they're 50 years old.
I think qualifying will be a good metric for that, no? Just about how comfortable Liam Lawson is with his car. Yes, they'll know that he has an engine penalty, and yes, they'll try to help Yuki Tsunoda in getting 1 session higher by using him as a slipstream bait. But that'll give us a good idea about just how comfortable Liam Lawson is with that car. And that is a big thing to watch for. But predictions, where do you think Lawson's going to finish, guys? Starts when I don't know how big the engine penalty is, and depends on how he
have
qualifies
the penalty.
to.
He'll have the penalty in the sprint, not in the.
Oh, is it not?
Yes, it's usually taken in the next race you participate, which becomes the sprint.
Oh, That's phenomenal. Like that's actually a very smart strategy then in that regard because he gets
Yeah.
effectively a test session, right? Because only the top 8 score points in the sprint anyway, which is not where you'd expect an Alpha Tauri to be at this circuit. So yeah, that's a good idea.
And since you mentioned Ricardo came back for Lawson last year, that means Lawson has never driven in COTA, which means he's going to
He's
be
not.
learning this circuit as well. So lots of prep for him. I think he'll be in the top 12. He probably might
Yeah.
just be in the scoring of the points. I think he's going to be a match for Yuki Tsunoda. Definitely will be.
Likewise. Ditto.
I think he's going to be P14 in specific.
Let's see. Let's see on that. P14 for you, P12 for the both of us. What do we think about the winner, guys? This is the last prediction we need to get. Because we've run 45 minutes into the episode. It's crazy. We've been having our fun today.
Yeah.
So I think
Go for it.
Lando Norris is going to be winning consecutive races for the first time since 2017. He's never done that
McLaren, you mean? Oh, you mean
No.
in his career?
in his career. The last time he actually won 2 consecutive races was in Formula 3 in the Formula 3 European Championship back in 2017.
Not
So
even in
it's-
Formula 2.
No, in Formula 2 he had only one win in his only season.
Ooh.
So yes, first
Interesting.
time in 7 years that he could possibly win 2 races in a row. And I feel we will have a safety car, which means this will not be the longest absence for Bernd Maylander in his safety car career. 9 is the longest, the joint longest. I definitely feel the safety car is going to make a comeback this weekend.
I'll
Okay.
tell you what. McLaren could score their 50th 1-2 in history this race weekend. I get a feeling it's going to be very neck and neck between Norris and PS3. Okay. Maybe team orders could come into play. But interestingly, you opened the episode saying this is the second time this season we're coming to America. Well, the first time we came to America in Miami is when McLaren put that upgrade on their car. Is when Max Verstappen hit that bollard and things have never been going straight for him. Question is, if Red Bull have to undo hitting of that bollard, it's this race weekend. Okay. And McLaren have been delaying their upgrades or waiting so that they, given how difficult it is to get upgrades to work. So can they actually bring in another upgrade, which will get them a step forward? Because in Miami, they were 115 points behind Red Bull, and now they are 41 points ahead. That's a 156 point swing that's happened in the Constructors' Championship. But my favorite stat is it's been what? Since Miami, it's been 12 races. Let me ask this question. Who has scored more points in McLaren? Is it Piastri or is it Norris?
I think.
Can I answer that?
Go for it.
No, I want to hear Soumil answer that first.
I think now it has to be Norris, no? With 3 wins.
So you're going with Norris?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually the both of them.
Oh, they tied.
Yes.
And
Wow.
Max Verstappen is just 1 point less than the two of them. Okay.
That's
So
insane.
Yeah, so even though Max has had such a bad 12 races or whatever number of races, Max has gone 10 races without a win, right? Yeah. It's his last win was in Spain.
Spain, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got only 1 pole since then, which was Austria as well.
Yeah, that's the difference between 2 half number ones and 1 big number one.
Yeah.
Generally,
But
that's
I'll
what
tell you
McLaren needs.
But
But I was
Max
checking-
generally
I-
has... Go on.
I was checking it's like the season is turned on itself. Red Bull has gotten slower, but there was this time when Red Bull was finishing, 20, 30 seconds ahead of everyone. Now, I think since the summer break, if I remember checking all the race times correctly, Max has finished at least 20 seconds behind the winner every time he's finished wherever. Okay. Which is also going to be a metric to check. Okay, they may not win, but could he be 5 seconds off in the race time? And is that progress for Red Bull as well?
I don't think so. The gap really matters as much because even though Verstappen has been 20 or 30 seconds behind Norris, in terms of positions, it's not a lot. So Lando Norris literally needs 8.5 points per race on Verstappen. He has to outscore him by 8.5 points, and he's not done that throughout the season. Even in the last couple of races, he's got anywhere between 3 to 8 points on Verstappen. It's not been higher than that. So
Right.
for Norris, no matter whatever he does, it will depend on what happens with Verstappen. And one thing that will really swing things in his favor is if Max Verstappen has a DNF or a non-point score finish, which rarely ever happens. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. Verstappen is just about there to have enough damage control.
But
Wait,
I'll
wait,
tell you
but
what.
winner.
I'll tell you
Go ahead,
what.
go ahead.
Race time actually matters to me because when Max was finishing 20 seconds ahead, we were wondering, is he even being pushed?
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing with Norris. If Norris finished, 20 seconds ahead in Singapore, was he even being pushed? Okay. And then I remember Imola when Norris was chasing Max and Max barely just finished ahead. We knew Max was being pushed. So for me, that's a metric this race weekend. If Red Bull actually brings upgrades that work or McLaren brings upgrade that doesn't work and so on. So,
Yeah.
but yes, it's not a definitive metric because, could Lando Norris have driven even faster and finished 30 seconds ahead in Singapore? We don't know, right?
No,
So
in
maybe
terms of
20
performance,
seconds
yes. In
yeah,
terms of
that's
performance, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay, Soumil, you were saying on to
On to the winner. Who are we picking, guys, for this one?
I said I've gone with Lando for once.
Lando.
I'll go with
Okay.
Oscar.
Oh,
Kunal's
so that
always
leaves.
going with Oscar. Kunal's always going with Oscar.
No, my heart is there. I've been increasingly flattered by his beautiful performances, but I'd say the mind has to go with Max. I think Red Bull are going to come up with that big banger of an upgrade, and we are going to see things open up once again. So
But
excited by
but
that.
but, but I'll tell you what. The upgrades is critical. But another stat or two stats. If Oscar wins or Lando wins, they'll suddenly find themselves enter that most wins in Austin because I don't think Hamilton is going to have
Yes.
the car to win. Okay, nor or chances of Max Verstappen having the car to win is also less. The two drivers who scored multiple wins. Otherwise, it's Perez and Bottas and I think Ricardo all with 1-1 wins that have happened. If that graphic you put up of most wins in Austin, right? But the other stat is there have been 5 different pole sitters in Austin in the last 5 years. So who could get pole? And interestingly, in the last 6 races, only Ferrari and McLaren have shared pole position honors. Ferrari scored pole twice, McLaren has scored pole 4 times. So Saturday will also be very interesting. And like you guys said, it's a sprint weekend. I think the 16th sprint race weekend as well. Another challenge is it's an anti-clockwise circuit, which I absolutely love the fact that everything is thrown in at it. And Samuel, this one's for you. When was the first time ever that a Formula One race was held in America?
Wow. As old as Formula One, basically. But
Yeah, that's true. Because
yeah,
the Indy 500 was held in 1950,
yeah.
which was the first time Formula One
Formula
even
One
raced it.
race. Formula One Grand Prix.
Yeah, Grand Prix.
The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
Grand Prix is different because the Indy
Yes.
500 used to be kind of like a hybrid thing where it used to be
Yeah.
a standalone round within the F1 calendar, but not really F1. So only a few F1 drivers used to compete over there, but not all of them. One of them was Graham Hill, who ended up winning. But it was a different series in a whole way. Yeah.
But the first United
Oh,
States Grand Prix in that regard, I think, would be 1959. And I think the defining moment of that race was Jack Brabham pushing his car across the finish line to win the championship. If he had not done that, I think he would have lost it if I remember correctly. But yeah, the first ever United States Grand Prix was as chaotic as that.
but before we end, there's going to be some milestones this weekend. Mercedes' 300th race in Formula One since they returned to the sport in 2010. Alexander Albon's 100th race
100th
in
race.
Yeah.
Formula One.
Wow.
Interestingly, Albon is the only driver to be eliminated in SQ1s in all sprint qualifyings this year. In fact, Logan Sargent has outqualified him in sprints. Okay, 2-1 this year, and Pierre Gasly's 40th race as well. with Alpine, not of course with Formula One. So lots of exciting things to look forward to this race weekend. And Somil, for your favorite driver, who you are very conveniently not mentioning, Carlos Sainz, he has started and finished fifth in every sprint qualifying in 2024, or sprint race as well. But interestingly, Leclerc has outqualified Sainz in the last 5 races. So please drop him a few texts and ask him to up the ante in his teammate rivalry with Charles Leclerc.
I swear, man, I've been waiting for that for such a long time. Let's see if there is any change in fortunes this weekend, though. Let's figure that out.
That exactly what I was going to mention. We've actually gone
Uh-huh.
through 55 minutes of an episode without mentioning Logan Sargent or Ferrari until Kunal mentioned both of them.
Exactly. Oh man, yeah. He's going to be watching the USGP for the first time as a former Formula One driver. That's going to be crazy. Well, we've come to an end to this episode, though, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the last 50 minutes. And if in case you did stick around, it means you enjoyed. And if you enjoyed, it'll not be fair if you don't subscribe to us. So do that. Subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast and share this audio or video episode to everyone who you think will be very keen in watching. Once again, folks, we'll be back on Monday for the post-race review, and we'll catch you over there for that one. Take care. Bye-bye.